Hi, I'm Kristen Brunius, and this is the Overcomers Podcast. I am so excited for you to hear the stories of incredible people overcoming trials and turning them into triumphs. From everyday moms and dads to entrepreneurs to community leaders and beyond, you'll see how everyone has a story of overcoming, and those stories are what connect us all. Let's hop right in. Hey everybody, welcome back to Overcomers, Stories of Trials and Triumphs. I'm Kristen Brunius. I am so happy to have you here. Thanks for hopping in. So this week is a first for the Overcomers podcast. This is the first time that we're having someone come back for the second time. And, you know, I have a lot of favorites when it comes to this podcast. I probably have about 45 different favorite episodes. I think this is like my 46th episode. That's why I say that. But this one is definitely one that stands out to me a lot, and it's with my friend Satinka. Satinka is a beautiful, beautiful inside and out friend from California. She is one of those friends when I am struggling, as Kristen does often. She's one of those people when I say, hey, will you pray for me? Like, she legit will. And sometimes she'll even pop on Marco Polo, which is like a video app. I don't know if you guys use it or not, but she will hop on there and she will just pray the Holy Spirit and Jesus over me. And I just love her to pieces. So she came on, I believe she was episode 4, and she told her story. So go back, listen. If you want a refresher, she does go through some of the highlights of her story, but a few weeks back, she came to me and she said, Kristen, I have an update. And I said, oh, and she said, this, and this is going on. And I said, you know what? Don't tell me. Let's do it live on the podcast. So as you're listening, you'll almost see me like lean in, be like, wait, what? Wait, what did you just say? That is genuine, because I truly did not know ahead of time. And what I find so amazing about Satinka is how ordained, how purposeful her life was. As she shared at the beginning of last episode, and she shares again in this episode, her mom came to the United States to abort her. With that was her purpose of coming here. Obviously, she didn't abort her. And I believe for all of us, let me back up. All of us have a purpose, but for Satinka, that purpose is so like glaringly in your face that your mom came here to murder you, but didn't, because God was going to do things in your life. God was going to use you for a purpose, for his glory, as he does all of us. But I just think that that's such a powerful, powerful story that God saved her life so that she could shine for Jesus. And if you know Satinka at all, you know that she does that, and she does that well. So thank you, Satinka, for coming in the second time in a row, or the second round as a guest. That's what I'm trying to say. And I want to do something a little bit different. She did give me an update to some events that happened between when we recorded and now. And she's given me permission to share a photo. And so at the very end of the episode, I'm going to show the photo, and I'm going to show you what has happened in Satinka's life in the last couple of days, weeks, and months. And I hope you guys will be as excited as I was to see this photo. All right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I've given you guys some hints that there are some big things happening behind the scenes with this podcast, and indeed there is. I've actually hired a company to do what's called a podcast takeover, and it's not that they're taking it over. What they're doing is they're just really going to step in and help me with all the things that just are struggles for me, like editing and social media. In order for me to be the kind of mom I want to be, I already have my Soul Naturals business, and I adore my Soul Naturals business. I don't want to take away from that. I also will not, I absolutely refuse to take time for my family. I really cherished my time with my kids. And so because of that, I had not started any sort of social media specifically for the podcast. My only sort of like form of advertisement for the podcast was really like a Facebook post on Wednesdays. Sometimes I do put it in my stories as well, but I have not created any reels or previews. I don't even have an Instagram account for the podcast. I don't have a YouTube. There's lots of things that I've wanted to do, but I feel like first and foremost, it's most important is my relationship with Christ, and I got to make sure I prioritize the time for that, for my husband, for my kids, for my business, for friends, for family, for church, and there just wasn't room in my life. So I did take a really big financial jump, and I hired a company to do this podcast takeover. So I'm excited what that's going to mean for the Overcomers podcast. I hope that that means that more people will be able to hear your stories, and I'm excited for you guys to grow with me. You will probably start to see things change, like the background might change a little bit, or it will change. Eventually, I'm going to work my way up to being a podcast studio. Some of the colors will change. I don't even have a logo. So there's a lot of things like probably should have had before I started this, but I like to do things backwards. So having said that, as you guys are very aware, the little ads that I do at the beginning for Soul Naturals is because Soul Naturals is really what funds the podcast. It is self-sponsored. This podcast is under the umbrella of things that Kristen does, and Soul is part of that, and really is what funds the podcast, if I'm being honest. And so when I do these little ads, I just wanted to say, first of all, how appreciative I am of all of you who have been Soul Naturals customers for the last 7 years, and for those of you who have come to start to use the products over the last couple years that I've been doing the podcast. And it is on my heart that God will use this podcast to grow, and that He will also grow and have confidence and just believe in Jesus, that if this is where my heart is, I'm getting choked up, that He will also grow my business alongside of it. And so I just have that confidence that He is going to bless that financially to make these dreams happen. Oh, yikes. I just really want to do it all for God's glory. So having said that, I've been doing a lot of digging, and I know this is a little bit of a longer intro, so my apologies, stick with me. I've been doing a lot of digging to who Kristen was when she started dabbling into holistics back in 2010, 2011. And one of the first things that I did start with was a protein powder. That was kind of like my first step into holistics. I did not go to chlorophyll. I didn't go to, adaptogenic herbs. And I think over the years, I've kind of forgotten about that in between. And so I just really feel it on my heart to take it back to the beginning, that I just feel like God is calling me to kind of be the connector between those moms out there who are tired and they're exhausted and they're feeling anxious and they need energy, but they also need sleep, and they just want to feel better and they want to just be the best mom that they can be. And so trying to find that gap in between, and I feel like I finally got it, and I'm really excited about it. I actually purchased a website. I talked about it last week. It is thecompletepackage.shop. I also wanted to keep the price point at or under $100. And so the price point is $111. You can use my coupon code Kristen to get the $10 off. So it ends up being $101. So it was $1 over what I really wanted it to be, but I promise you that dollar will be worth it. And what is it? It is that new complete protein that I keep telling you guys about. I'm actually drinking it right now on set. And basically it's protein, but it's so much more than protein. It's also digestive enzymes and probiotics and fiber. It has a GLP-1 activator, which will keep you fuller for longer. It has yerba mate in it, which will give you great focus and great energy. And it is soy-free, dairy-free, gluten-free, non-GMO. I'm trying to think of all the other things it is. Like, it just isn't crap. Can I say that? And so the completepackage.shop, that website that I purchased where you can get all of this, has both flavors. We have double Dutch chocolate, which is what I'm drinking right now, or vanilla creme, which is really good too. Actually, vanilla creme is really good in my coffee. Included in this package, speaking of coffee, what I usually add to my coffee is a product called Cinnamate. Cinnamate, just for me, just was something that gave me great energy, clarity. It doesn't make me crash. It also has 196 vitamins and minerals and other nutritional components, amino acids, all like the fun sciencey stuff. But what makes it even better is it tastes delicious. I add it to my coffee. It tastes like a cinnamon coffee. Sometimes I drink it by itself. Sometimes I add it to hot chocolate. Sometimes I put it in with the protein. It's super versatile, just because it just does taste so good. And then product number 3 is a product called Vertizymes. It's a digestive enzyme, so think bloating, but it also helps you to sleep. And so in a perfect world, you would wake up in the morning, and if you drink coffee, you would add a little cinnamate to your coffee. Mid-morning for a snack or for your breakfast, you would make the protein. And before you go to bed, you would take a couple capsules called Vertizymes to help you debloat, digest, and sleep. And really, that's the complete package. If I could go back to the 2012 mom who was trying to search for everything, who was taking all these vitamins and minerals and things for anxiety and, following the latest trend, if I could go back and say, you're going to get all of your vitamins and minerals, plus you're going to get energy, plus you're going to get protein, plus you're going to help your digestive system, plus you're going to sleep really well with these 3 products. I wish I had it then, but you guys have it now. So thecompletepackage.shop, that goes literally directly to support this podcast. And it is my prayer that this podcast can get in more people's ears and that they can believe that they're overcomers. And it's not, it's not just a religious thing. There's people on here who aren't Christians who talk about their businesses or their books that they've written and things like that. But I hope that you can hear my heart behind it, that I just want to tell everybody about Jesus. And this is a great platform to do that. So a little bit longer intro than usual. And I can't wait for you guys to hear Satinka's story. She is a blessing to me, and she is a blessing to so many other people. So let's hop right into her story. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Overcomers, Stories of Trials and Triumphs. We are back with episode 46, I believe, which, wow, God is good. I did not think that, well, I don't really know what I thought, to be honest. To be totally honest, Satinka was laughing at me because literally I started this podcast and I just keep doing it, and I'm amazed at what God has done with it. And here we are 40 some episodes later. So this is a first time for me. We are actually having a repeat guest on, and I can't think of anyone better than my friend Satinka. But before we jump into that, I just want to remind you guys to go back and listen to past episodes. Satinka was actually episode 4. But there are 40 some other amazing stories of God's glory. Last week, we had the opportunity to have the executive vice president of Soul Naturals on, Jordan Peterson, and he told an awesome story of creating a business from scratch and stories of overcoming in terms of health and business. The week before that, we had Anita Carpenter, Caleb Dutton, Denise Kuiper, and I could go on and on and on of all of these amazing, amazing stories of business and health and music and all of those things. So make sure you go back and listen. And as you can see, we have upgraded, we have leveled up. Just felt a real Holy Spirit call to what I kept hearing him say is, Kristen, stop playing small. And Satinka, I'm crying again. And he just really laid it on my heart to take this to the next level. And the next level, obvious level, was video, which is a little scary. But this is the 3rd episode of video. I have just super awesome things in the works behind the scenes for you guys. You're going to see this podcast mold and form as I have somebody working on some logos. They're going to start doing some more advertising and social media and reels, and we're just really cool stuff coming. So thank you all for making it this far with us. And to Satinka, who on my 4th episode said yes when I really did not know what I was doing. So Satinka, I appreciate you. And I love you from California for being such an awesome friend, prayer warrior, and all of the things. So Satinka and I know each other through Soul Naturals.
Mhm.
Um, the story I love to tell of how we met was we were at a conference in Vegas, and they made us mix up and go into different tables. And I did not want to mix up because I was there with my friends, and I didn't want to meet other people because I was there with my friends. But we mixed up, and I ended up sitting next to her husband, and he just was awesome. And then introduced me to the rest of the family and Satinka, and she's been stuck with me ever since. So I'm so grateful for your friendship. I really, really am. So,
Yay.
Satinka, I'll throw it to you. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about, where should we start?
Well, one funny thing I want to add to you meeting my husband is I don't know if it was the same trip or another trip because, we had to see each other at the next event. And my husband comes to me later and he says, You know, Kristen Brunius? I was like, Well, yeah. And he says, She asked me if I was a Christian.
I did?
Yeah. But she said, But are you a Bible believing Christian? And he's like, well, yeah. And so it was just fun, like his perception. You were being careful and trying to be, a little precise and, non-offensive. And it was just really cool because he remembers you asking that. And I was like, wow, she's brave. And I'm glad you had the answer she was looking for.
Sometimes I do and say things. I don't know.
But
Well,
it was cool because I get it, not all the same paths lead to heaven. So there's that. So that's
well,
all. It was
yeah,
just a
and
fun thing
that's
to remember from my husband.
one thing that connected us from the beginning was that our faith, and
Absolutely.
there's this app called Marco Polo, if you guys aren't familiar with it. And when I first met Satinka, I didn't grow up in the kind of house where we did a lot of like charismatic praying out loud. Like that was sort of a new thing to me. And so when Satinka and I started talking back and forth on Marco Polo, like she used to pray over me, and it wasn't like your 15-second prayer. Like Satinka can pray. Like this woman has the Holy Spirit. And I used to be like, oh my gosh, Dave, she prayed for me for like 4 minutes straight. And now that's how I pray too. I've come a long way in my faith. But yeah, you just were a great example to me of what a woman who lives in line with the Holy Spirit is. And that has been our one of our first bonds, amongst other things like
Yeah.
children and husbands and soul naturals and all the other things.
Yeah.
So thanks for
Praise God.
sharing that.
You're welcome. So I'm Satinka and I live in Southern California, like you mentioned. I'm a mom. I like to hustle from home, make money in different ways that I can, and, support my financial picture because we live in California.
It's a little expensive.
Just a little bit. But my passion is to be with my kids and homeschool, and I homeschool with my nieces. And it's just really important to me to find ways to make it fit into my schedule with them being the priority of being at home in the homeschool. Um, and yeah, I that's me a tiny bit. But I guess when you asked me onto the podcast, you had heard that I was a teen mom, so that was sort of like how we started. But then I told you a lot of other cool things about overcoming because it was really in line with just how I've always sort of, maybe not always, but most of my life looked for ways to look at things differently and look for, okay, God, what are you doing? What am I supposed to learn from this? How do I get out of this? What do I do with this? Blah, blah, blah. So really, I thought it was really cool and an honor to be asked to be on a podcast called The Overcomers. Um, and you sort of gave me, I remember you asking me, you're like, give me three things you wanted me to tell you about my, parts of my story. So do you want me to?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the actual very first beginning of how you ended up in the United States was, I feel like, your first story of overcoming with your
Mhm.
mom coming to the United States. So just start there.
All right.
Just take us through the whole thing. And just as a reminder, guys, Satinka did tell her story on episode 4, but the reason that I decided to have her on again is because her story continues to grow, and I really wanted to bring her back because I just feel like she had so much to say and so much to share. And I know that the podcast and the audience has grown since then. So take us from the beginning, all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah. So both of my parents that I grew up with were in the Navy. Before they were married, however, my mom was stationed in Iceland, and she had a relationship with someone, became pregnant. Uh, and as this story has always been told to me, is one, she didn't want to have an abortion there in Iceland. I don't know what the circumstance was. Is it illegal? Is it a funding thing? Is it she's in the Navy, she's going to get in trouble? I have no idea. I don't need to know that part because I'm here today. But that was her intention. I don't know what I'm going to do with this pregnancy. So she had every intention of terminating, and and then also that part about the guy she was with, my father. All my life, she has just said, I don't remember his name. And there was a point where I started to realize that there might be more to the story that I shouldn't keep pressing. And one, it's like, okay, I can't go backwards, and I'm not going to, I never want it to be shameful or, make her feel bad because I never knew the circumstances. And she wasn't in a place to tell it to me
Hmm.
other than I forgot his name. So all my life, all I've ever known is that my dad was obviously in the Navy with her in Iceland, that he was Filipino, and that he was in communications. He was a cryptologist.
Okay.
And anyway, so my mom, she says, let's go, or, she went back to the States, to America, still in some sort of intention to not go through with this pregnancy. But then also something that was happening in her life at the same time. So mom was on her deathbed. And so her dad finds out she's pregnant. Her dad's not happy with that. He unfortunately had a problem with the fact that it would not be an all white baby. So he started to send people from adoption agencies to go meet my mom
Mhm.
to try to talk her into giving up this baby for adoption. And, she saw her mom uh, pass away in October of 83. I was born in January of 84. And where I was born is actually, well, on my birth certificate, this is address of this facility in Vermont that still helps women in situations like my mom, unwanted or unplanned pregnancies.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
Whatever the situation is where they need a safe place to have a baby or
And it's
get on
still
their
in
feet,
existence?
it is still there.
Ah, that's
It is still
crazy.
there. So my birth certificate, yeah, it just has my mom's name and her information and then the address of this location. And then she just left the father part blank. Um, and so obviously I'm still here. And
Praise
my mom,
Jesus.
and then my mom, she married my stepdad. I was 5 months old, and um, so all my life I've called him dad. But I knew I don't know when, but I knew at a young age that he wasn't, my blood dad, but I called him dad. And their relationship wasn't like the best. I have a lot of really hard memories of the two of them, and lots of fighting, lots of arguing. And then my two half brothers come along, and it just seemed to every new development just made it more complicated for the two of them. Um, and we lived in a lot of different places because they were in the military. And so, I was born in Vermont, and there's like West Virginia where they got married, um, and then Louisiana where my brothers were. And then we'd go and visit her parents in Florida, or her dad. One cool thing that I really love to remember is how my stepdad told me a story that, yeah, your grandpa, my mom's dad, um, he didn't he obviously didn't want to have anything to do with the not all white baby. But my stepdad told me a story where he said the first time he came to see my brother, his grandson, he's like, he fell in love. So he could
Oh,
he couldn't help it. And it's such a cool thing to know that, because all my growing up, he'd come and visit us and I'm like, I love this grandpa man. I love Grandpa Doll. He's just like a treasure. He was funny. So that's just something really cool to, like put those two pieces together, and then just the sweet note from my stepdad to say, no, he fell in love when he met you.
a little bit of like almost like redemption there, like a
Hmm.
little redemption for the racist words that he spoke, that he came to realize that he was wrong.
Hmm.
And he
Yep.
loved you because you're lovable.
And like, family is family, heritage is heritage. Like, there's something super significant. And even in the Word of God, there's a reason why there was so much significance to writing the names down and making sure everyone knew where you came from and that your name reflected your story or reflected the story of your birth or whatever. So it's like heritage is huge, whether it's under the circumstances you want it or not.
Yeah.
It's just the
Yeah.
truth of the matter.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, living in Louisiana, there was a point where my stepdad said, all right, all right, I think the next station was California. So we head all the way across California, um, or head to California from Louisiana. And that was, those are just some fun, hard memories too, because you're driving across country, and we visited some friends. Me and my brothers got chicken pox on the way.
You
And
did.
we did. And I just remember we were like in a hotel, and like me and my brother like just have our underwear on, and we're just like crying because like mom's trying to put the that chalky
Mm-hmm.
pink stuff on our skin and trying to give us a cool bath, and she's just trying to do everything to give us some comfort. But I remember it was really hard. And then I remember, like, we were headed to California, and I remember my little brother, I don't know how old he was, but he was little. I'm like, I was in charge. I don't think we had a car seat. I'm pretty sure we didn't have a car seat because I was in charge of making sure he stayed in his car in the seatbelt with me. Like, I shared my seatbelt with him. So that was an interesting thing to remember because I was probably 5, 6 or so, going across the country. Um, and then kind of leads us into the second portion or my second overcoming big thing in my life was, growing up with my mom and my stepdad. It was pretty typical that if you're in trouble, you're gonna get whooped, some kind of spank, some kind of belt or slipper or stick, whatever. Um, and where we lived, we actually moved again in California to a little bit more south, and my dad, he just bought that house, and we, um, I remember my mom always had trouble with like babysitters or keeping babysitters because they'd be like, your sons are just too crazy, or your son is too crazy, that it's too much work. And I always felt bad when I heard that. But anyway, so there was several occasions where I was watching my brothers. My mom be like, I'd have to go with her to work because I'm a little too young to leave at home. And so I have memories of being in the car with my brothers while my mom, she's still in the Navy. Like, she'd work for the galley and for the kitchen, and um, I'd have them in the car, and she worked 2 jobs. So after the Navy, working in the kitchen, then we'd go to 7-Eleven because she worked at the 7-Eleven. And yeah, I've slept in the back of a 7-Eleven quite a few times with
So
my
she
brother.
would just take you with because, I mean,
Yeah.
what else do you do, right?
Yeah. She was being as responsible as humanly possible. Like, I can't leave these really small kids at home. Like, and I remember she'd come out and check on us. It's not like we were there for hours and hours. It's not like she left the dog in the car with the windows up kind of thing. It wasn't,
Right,
but
right.
it's like she just did it. Like, what else am I supposed to do? Especially if my dad was out to sea, or he was working, or, whatever. And so there was, one time where my brothers, or my brother, we were with a babysitter and he'd gotten in trouble, and my mom gets home, and he did something, so he got punished. He got spanked, but it was really odd the next day because at school, I remember hearing over the intercom, like, Satinka, doll, don't get on the bus. And I was like, okay, that's weird. So I remember I had to sit in the office. I was
How old were
probably,
you at this point?
was probably like 10
Okay.
or 11, something like that. Like fourth grade, I think. Anyway, so I'm sitting in the school office, and I'm young, so I can't really tell how long it is, but it feels like a really long time because now it's like there's one lady left in the office.
Mm.
And then these people come and pick me up, and I don't recognize them. And they're like, hey, something happened to your brother. We have to take you somewhere safe tonight. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Where's my mom? And, and then I get to the car, and then my baby brother's in the car, because there's three of us, and he's the youngest, I'm the oldest. And my little brother, he's, crying when he sees me. He probably had to have been 2,
Oh, so he was like really little.
maybe 3, something, somewhere young enough where he's like, crying, and just, I don't remember him saying any words, but I just kept repeating to him, it's going to be fine. Mom's going to come get us. And I remember that searing image of him in the car and his curly little hair, and he's just crying, and like the sensation I felt in my body, like just everything it took to not cry, because I'm really confused, I'm a little upset, and I want my mom, I want my brothers, and then the lady explains that we have to be all in different places. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm like losing my mind because, yeah, you probably shouldn't spank your kids with the broomstick or your shoe, but where's my mom? We messed up. When you mess up, you're going to get a spank. Like, this is just the way it is.
Or
And
at
then,
least the way it was back then.
yeah, but to me, in my mind, like, this is the penalty you pay. Like, don't be dumb. Don't do anything stupid because you're going to pay. And so as a child, I think it happens in a lot of abuse situations where you're like, I still want my mom. This is the only safety you know. And so with my brother, he's just crying. It's okay. Mom's going to come get you. It's okay. Mom's going to come get you. That was really hard. And then they dropped me off, and then, and so all of us were split up. Um, that was, that was really hard.
Well, just so confusing, right? Because you don't know where mom is, you don't know where your brothers are, you don't know who these people are. Um,
And I'm supposed to sleep here tonight until you say it's okay for me to go home.
and
Like,
did they explain any of it to you at all?
they just said that, I remember, you know, them saying something about your mom spanked your brother, but he has bruises. And so we just need to put you guys somewhere safe.
Mm.
And so again, that's just like baffling to me. I'm like, well, that's not normal. That's just typical. And so anyway, because I was the oldest, there was a part where I got to go back home earlier than my brothers, because my stepdad, I don't know, he was in the Navy or still, or if he was away or whatever, and they let me go home and be with my mom. And then a little bit time after that, they said, okay, now you're going to go. You're still in foster care, still ward of the state, but we're going to send you to your relative's house, which was my stepdad's mom and dad in Michigan.
Hmm.
So they sent us to Michigan, and
That's a long way from California.
especially from Southern California, like, and little kids. And that was my first time on a plane. Like, I remember, like, what?
Who
We have
flew
to,
with you?
the social workers,
Huh.
they they took two, it was two social workers and us three kids that they took. And I remember it was so, like, again, there's just these glimpses of things I remember, because high stress situations, it's hard to remember everything. And so I remember them like rushing us, like, come on, keep up, come on, keep up, because they're like, had my baby brother and all our stuff, or if we had stuff. I don't even know if we had stuff. Like I just picture this like hustle through an airport, and then just the nervousness of being on an airport or on an airplane. Like this is the first time and you're not even with your own parents. And yeah. And then so we get there, um and we knew who, Grandma and Grandpa Slinkard were, because they were just like, they would always come and visit us too in Louisiana. They come from Michigan down to Louisiana. So I knew who they were. I knew they were special people. I really loved them, and um had gotten to know them, and always looked forward to meeting with them. So then it was actually kind of cool to hear, oh, okay, we get to go to Grandma and Grandpa's house. And so they send us there, and they enroll us in school. And
What part of
um,
Michigan was it?
Alpena, Michigan, up in the finger.
Okay.
It's like way up there. It was actually called Presqu'île Isle. It's this really small little place. Like if we went into town, it was like half an hour away.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was just fun to learn all that too, because I'd never experienced that. Like Grandpa would get the gas and then go pay. Like what?
Oh, yeah, that is different.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I was aware of that as a little kid. Like, what? And the whole like, leave your money on the people's farm stands. You just take what you need and leave the money in their little basket or whatever. It's like, what?
And people don't steal it?
No, it's a basket full of money. And so, a really special memory that I believe was, another portion of like overcoming such a hard a hard childhood, if you will, was, being with them. They just did everything differently. One, they weren't always arguing, and one, they were, or two, that just things were in order, and there was a routine, and you know, and it was predictable. Like we eat dinner at the same time every day. We sit together every day for dinner, and take me to school at the same time, or tell me to, or I'd have to go walk to the bus at the same time every day. And um, just that experience alone really showed me what it could be like in a family, if you will. And something that I really, really remember that was special was that as I was just being aware of myself and who I was as an adult, when I would reflect, I mean, as I reflect back on it, um, it meant the world to me to hear my mom, or to hear Grandma Slinkard, tell people, this is my granddaughter.
Mm.
She just made me feel so important and so special. And not to say that, my parents didn't love me, but my mom was just maxed out with all the stuff she was dealing with her husband and their relationship, and working a lot, and us kids, and then the one kid who's seemingly crazy to the world. That was just meant the world to me, that she, took the time to just be proud of who I was. And it's not even that I did anything special. She just was like, this is my granddaughter. And that just made me feel so special. And that really follows me around, because it was hard. I didn't have good self esteem. And every memory of school I have is not a very good one, other than when I was in Michigan at school. Because I think, again, you reduce stress for a child. It's They have the ability to, flourish and do better in school and
Well, I
stuff like
mean,
that.
reduce stress for anybody. Like you were in such survival mode, and then when you got to spend that time, what were you there for a year? Or
Almost a year. It was about 9 months.
and you were seen and
Mhm.
it was predictable and you knew you were going to get fed and you knew that you were loved and cared for.
Mhm.
You got to let that survival mode down for a minute so you could actually learn. And
Mhm.
I taught in the city of Chicago for 2 years, and I saw that with a lot of students that like they just they just couldn't. really learn because they were too busy trying to survive. And that was actually a private school. It wasn't even a public school. I can only imagine a public school be even being even harder for these kids. But they just their brain didn't have the capacity to focus on learning because they had to focus on, I mean, almost all the kids in I shouldn't say almost all. I'd say probably around 50% of the kids were like on food stamps and government assistance and stuff like that. And they would like trade their different snacks for like different things. And they would talk about how they were going to get this, that, and the other. And they were like fourth and fifth graders, but they were like already very good at, I don't want to use the word manipulation. I think some of it was manipulation, but street smarts. Like
Mhm.
they were really good at surviving. They knew how to troubleshoot. And sometimes it was manipulative, like they would take advantage of different things to get what they wanted. But other times it was just like they could get by because they had to. And so I imagine little Satinka was similar, right? You
Yeah.
know? So,
Yeah, I guess you just don't realize it as a kid, like I said, with the whole, physical corporal punishment, if you will, just that physical punishment, like that's I don't see the problem. Like this is all I know, you know. So you just do better and how not to get in trouble um and I mean, like I said, I love my mom, and I realize just as being a mother myself, like, man, I just can't even imagine what that would have been like to be that just so angry or so out of control that you take it out on your kids. Like I would, I can't imagine ever doing that. Now that I know that there's a difference, and I have a heart for people who get in that situation because they just didn't even know that they needed something. And maybe they learned that that was normal. And um, yeah, I have a heart for that kind of thing and just helping mommies in general. But
yeah. Yeah.
um, and then so leading to the next part of we get back from Michigan, and my stepdad, um, we he had bought a house, and then he left the Navy, and then he wanted to start a bakery. And I think that that was just what put the both of them over the edge, just financially, and just the level of stress now that he's a businessman on his own. And then my mom also having an enormous amount of responsibility, not only just to work, but to take care of the kids. And then the anger management classes and the community service time that she had been sentenced, if you will. Like my mom just had even more. And then whatever stress that, my stepdad probably heaped on, like, hey, you've got to pay your part, or you've got to work too, because we can't afford this house and the business and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it was Valentine's Day of 1996. My mom said, take me to the nearest social services office. I'm leaving. And she packed up our stuff and we left. It was Valentine's Day. And
Wow.
I remember him being like upset, and he was crying, and he's like, I'll do better. And it was really hard. Like I don't know that I had seen him cry before. Like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I'm not sure I've ever seen him cry, but I saw him cry that day. He's just like, please, please don't go. But then at the same time, I saw what I normally saw as him get angry, because then he's like, fine, leave. You're gonna figure out you need me. And, it's just like, just very quickly, he just realized, what is happening. I remember her being like really quiet, and she didn't say anything. It was like scary silent. She didn't say any words. And yeah, and then it was so funny sitting in this office, this social services office. It reminded me of after I got picked up from school, they must have taken me to a social services office because it was that same kind of like sterile, cold, like there's not any art on the wall, everything's white. And so, yeah, we had to sit in this social services office for hours because my mom needed to apply for food stamps. And we literally had nowhere to go that night, just like a backpack each. And that was it. So they gave her these vouchers for a hotel in Lake Elsinore. And so we went to this hotel. We were there for a few weeks before my mom could find a rental that would take like whatever they'd give her like these funds or like this receipt or something for like a place to live or whatever. So we stayed at this hotel. That hotel, I think, is probably why I'm like, I have some really weird sensory problems because I remember the floor, it was this ratty flat carpet, but it was like grimy. And oh my gosh, when you turn on the water, because it was over a springs, the water had a smell. So it's probably why I'm very sensitive to water, my water being clean and filtered. But yeah, we got to stay in this hotel. Like, praise God. Like, how do you know that's like my mom had to have so much like just trust in God that
Well, that's what I was going to say was like the courage to be like, I'm done, walk away and go. I mean, she didn't have anything. Like
nothing. We had no car.
right, to walk away from because I know people who are in really bad relationships and they'll be like, well, Kristen, I can't leave because I don't have enough money. Well, Kristen, I can't leave because what will people say? And I mean, your mom walked away, left everything, and she had nothing. She didn't even have a plan, you know?
Nope.
So she obviously she made mistakes. Like we all make mistakes. But
Absolutely.
I give her credit for getting you guys out of that situation.
Yeah. But it was pretty wild. And then to stay at that seedy hotel, motel, whatever it was, and then we had to go to a laundromat and it was just wow. It like when I think about that little place, when I drive, I've driven past it I'm not very far from it, and it's just like I can't believe. And it actually looks a lot nicer than it did then.
Did they do a little remodeling?
They probably just painted the outside, is my guess.
Hopefully they changed the carpet.
Yeah. So there's that, and then that this kind of it feels like I want to. I don't want to sound negative, but it feels like I kind of everything kind of snowballed from there, if you will, because then, you know, now we're with our single mom and things are tough, and then I start high school. You know, I was in middle school and then high school, and then that, then leads into my, you know, another huge significant part of my story is uh I got pregnant at age 16. 16.
Well, but let's pause there a second. Like the stuff that you went through, let me say it this way. I have two daughters, one in middle school and one in high school. And like they think the world is falling all the time. And they have a very stable household, a mom and dad who adore each other. You know, they have food, they have all the things. You were a young woman whose life was falling apart in a lot of ways. And so, let's put that in context. Choices were made, things were done. So you're
Yeah.
16, pregnant,
Yeah.
really
And
no support.
nope. um I mean, there were people in my life. So also, I mean, the cool things I was doing in um, middle school and high school was there was what was called kids church, and I met this lady who would run this kids church, and it was kind of like afternoon time, and I'd go once or twice a week because I think at one point she did meet twice a week, and she had two different churches, so they were close enough to walk. We'd walk there, and I'd go and I was her helper, so I always felt proud about like being her helper and everything, and that she trusted me to, hey, help the kids and do this, do that, and took my brothers. And So that was part of my day. And, we'd go to school, and I did pretty good in school, because I liked how it felt to get a good grade and turn
Hmm.
stuff in and do well. So it's like I was doing well, but with the things that I could control, I can control my schoolwork, do my schoolwork. And, there were a lot of things I started doing very young, like doing my own laundry, because I realized, like, whatever my mom's buying, I get a rash like on my chest and my back. I'm like, I can't. So I'd figure out, okay, I got to babysit to make money to buy my own detergent and do my own laundry. And there was one point where, I my mom didn't pay the phone bill, like the house phone. We had house phones then.
Hmm.
And I was like, Mom, why doesn't the phone work? Well, I couldn't pay it. Well, Mom, I need to call my friend because I need a ride to work. Like, so I would, because all my friends drove and had cars, so I'd give them gas money to take me to work. And I was like, Mom, like, I have to go to work. Like, it's too late now. Like, I'm gonna be late or whatever. And so then I remember paying the bill to turn it back on, and like,
How
okay,
did you
Mom.
even know how to pay the bill?
I, well, I don't know, but I
Just
know
figured things out.
I did. And you know what else I knew is I knew which grocery store where it was cheapest to get a money order, because I didn't have a checking account.
Huh.
So,
That's what I'm saying is like
like,
when you
I,
when you give human beings the ability to be resourceful, like we can figure things out. Maybe we need to not give our kids so many resources.
yeah, I like, if I think about it, I'm not sure how I knew. I mean, I knew what the bill was, and then I'm like, I think I know there was one time where I gave her the money order. I'm like, well, here's the money order. When are you going to mail it? Like, how fast will they turn it back on? And I remember paying the gas bill, because you need it to turn the stove on, and have hot water. Um, so there were things like that I was doing in, high school, because I babysat a lot. Everyone knew that I would babysit. And and then, but also at the same time, I had a boyfriend that I had gotten close with, and then and then there was a family who was like, it was so funny because these sisters would go out clubbing, and they're like, "Can you watch our kids? Can you just stay the night? Because we're not going to be home until like 3 in the morning or whatever." And then they're like, "You can bring your boyfriend. You can have your boyfriend over if you want to." And it was just like, I was like, well, yeah, this is cool. I'm gonna get paid. I'm gonna take care of these kids, and I get to hang out with my boyfriend. So yeah, that was probably part of the problem too. It just, being put in situations that I probably should have never been in.
Yeah, yeah, it happens, but I think God turned that into a blessing.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, finding out I was pregnant was really complicated, in and of itself, because um, I remember, what little I know about a period. And it's like, okay, I know that if you're late, that it could be that you're pregnant. So I didn't want to be seen buying a pregnancy test. So my friend and I went to Walmart and I stole a pregnancy test.
Oh my gosh. You stole the
And
pregnancy test?
I did. I didn't want anyone to see me buy it. And then where are we going to go? There was a McDonald's close to the Walmart, so we went to the bathroom of a McDonald's. She came in the stall with me, and I peed on that little thing. Then the lines show up, and I just remember crying, and she started crying, and she's like, if your mom gets mad, you could just come and live with me. Like, it's gonna be okay. And I'm so glad it was her when that first happened, because could you imagine if it was with a different friend? But here's the kicker. I didn't want someone to support me saying yes to having this baby because I'm, 16 years old. What are you talking about? Yeah, right.
Hmm.
I'm going to go to college. I'm going to do all these things. So then um, later, I remember calling another friend who I knew would be more minded like me and asking her, like, hey, so I'm pregnant, and I need to figure out how to go get an abortion. And how do you do that? And she's like, well, you can come over. We'll just just stay the night. And I remember looking through a phone book to like,
Resourceful.
how do you look up who to call? I don't even remember. Did I go to A for abortion? Like, I don't even know what I looked up. Like, how do you know what to look up? But I looked, and you call one place and it's like, no, we don't do that here. Okay, well, who do I call? And you find out how much it is. And then I'm like, okay, how much money do I have? Um, how much do I need to come up with? And I made the appointment, and I, told the boyfriend, and I said, hey, but I don't want to go by myself. You can't make me go alone. You have to come with me. I'm not going to do it if you're not with me. So I made an appointment. I couldn't find him the morning of. Like, I figured it all out. Like, I'm going to pay my friend's older sister money to take me. We missed the first appointment. I got to make another appointment. We're on appointment number 2. Miss it again. Legit cannot find him. I've called him on the phone, went to his house. He's not there. And so then we get to the third appointment, and the same thing happens 3 times. And so then I call them back, and they're like, well, now you're a little bit further along, and now when you come, you have to stay for longer for like observation and make sure nothing happens. And then at the same time, there was an event, I was at church or whatever, and I kid you not, there was a woman who stopped me and said she wanted to talk to me. It was just me and her. No, so only 2 of my friends and the boyfriend know. That's it. Nobody else knows. This woman wants to talk to me. We're talking alone. She tells me, the Lord told me that you're pregnant. I want to help you. And I was like, who told you? Who told you? No, I'm not. Who told you? I was so mad. I was probably like a little rabid animal backed into a corner. I remember being so upset with her. I was like, how do you know? How do you know? And I start like getting so upset. I was crying, and she's just crying, and she's begging me, please just let me help you. Please just let me help you. And I was like, no, I can't. I cannot have this be. I want to have, no, 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 no. And I
Man, I
don't
got
remember,
goosebumps all over. And I know
like,
this story. It's still so cool to hear it.
it is because, like, okay, God, how did you do that?
The Holy
And
Spirit.
and so I don't remember how we ended that, but I just said, promise me you won't tell anyone, and I'll go talk to, it was another woman that I would trust, and I'll go talk to Jody. I promise I'll talk to Jody, and I'll ask her for help to tell my mom. And so I talked to that lady, set up a time to talk, and I tell her, and I was like, well, will you help me tell my mom? And then there was one more lady that I trusted. It was actually one of the ones who would be like, can you babysit my kids and you can have your boyfriend over? It was her. And so it was her and this other lady tell my mom, and I tell my mom, and she starts crying, and it was just wild. I, and it was sad. When I think of it, that I can't believe I said it. I was like, I hope you're proud of me that I didn't have an abortion. I was like so sassy and so like, I can't believe I said that, and sometimes when now that I know what I know, it's really sad that I really thought that that was my only option.
Hmm.
I'm so sad, like for younger me, because like no one told me it'll be okay, other than the lady who's like, God told me you were pregnant. It was like, I don't know you enough to to trust that it's gonna be okay. And then I thought this was the only way to solve a problem. Like, I'm already in pickles all the time. I don't want to be in another one, and this one's too big. And and then and then like what you go through, like what I went through after having him, and um probably for 2 years straight, Kristen, there were so many nights where I'd wake up and I'd just go be beside, be beside his bed, and I would just beg the Lord to forgive me that I wanted to kill this little baby. Like, God, forgive me that I thought Like, I'm sorry, Lord. And that was so hard to think, like, God, can you really forgive me that I was gonna do that? Because we know what it means. We know what abortion means. That little baby has a heartbeat and its own DNA and its own fingerprint. Like, just
And shame on us for communicating the message that if you get pregnant, that's your only choice. And by
yeah,
us, I don't mean you and I mean us as a culture.
yeah.
You know, like what is that? Like
I,
why is it that the message that teenage girls and boys, but especially teenage girls get, the worst possible thing that could happen to you is that you could have a child. Like what? We make mistakes, right? Like
yeah,
let's not make another mistake. Let's not murder a child. Because that's what abortion is. It's murder.
yeah, yeah,
Hands down.
yeah.
So may I
And
pivot here a second?
yep.
So I was just talking with my husband the other day. I read this article that talked about the mental health benefits of especially like middle school into high school girls being around young children, like babies. And it talked about how historically people used to have bigger families. And so, like my grandpa and grandma were both from families of like 10 and 11. And then by the time I got to my parents, they're like families of four. And now we have a family with three kids, and so like they're getting smaller and people tend to be like a little bit more like family planning. And so it's not super common anymore for, let's say my oldest daughter's 15, for my 15-year-old daughter to be around an infant, unless it's like her cousins or like a family friend or whatever. And they were talking about a study that they did of teenage moms that we have been told that if you're a teenage mom, your life is over.
Hmm.
Like that's the message that's out there in culture. And what they found when they followed these teenage moms through the pregnancy into having the baby and after the baby, that actually their mental health improved.
Mm.
And that actually the more teenage girls can spend time with infants. Now, I'm not advocating for teenage pregnancy. I'm not. I'm not advocating. What I'm saying is we have to stop the message of the worst thing that can ever happen to you is you're pregnant. Like, I don't want you to get pregnant as a teenager. It's not great. It isn't great. But the message of your life is over is not true. And what they found was, and I think this is part of your story too, is after you had him, you had a reason to live and you had a reason to try and to strive and to be happy. And you could look at him with love and all of that. And so, I guess this is my, you know, call to say that if you are a teenager listening to this and you end up pregnant, it's not the end of the world. Or if
Hmm.
you are a parent whose daughter ends up pregnant, or your son ends up getting a girl pregnant, or a family friend, it's not the end of the world.
Mm-mm.
There are other options out there, whether it's having that child or adoption, or there's
Yes,
other there's other options out there. So,
absolutely.
yeah. I thought that was a
Absolutely.
really cool study.
That is.
Yeah.
And the way the Lord provided was, there was, so that kids' church thing, that lady had a helper. And that helper, she was, she's a young adult and she had a husband and they find out that I'm pregnant and they, they just, they loved me since they met me. It's fun to recount how I met them and through this kids church thing and how they were building a relationship with me. And when they found out I was pregnant, they God put it on their heart to open up their home to me to come and be with them. Um, that was they had to get permission from my mom, and my mom finally says yes. So yeah, I had him in the hospital and went home from there to be with them and lived with them, and they just again like God provided a way for me to see what it was like to be inside of a family, husband and wife who love each other, how to keep order and plan for your meals and grocery shop and budget and
And
like all.
what a huge responsibility they took on. Like you, what they weren't married very long when you lived with them, right?
Yeah, maybe 5 or 6 years. And
Like
they both were young. Like he was probably 30 and she wasn't 30 yet.
to
And then,
take in a 16-year-old who just had a child,
yeah, I was 17 when I had him, but yeah,
17.
still the same. Like, oh yeah, we don't have kids of our own yet. Let's bring in this teenage girl and her baby and you know and then that's just really a cool part of their story too, is that um they were never able to have their own children, and he tells this story. He's like, I was able to say yes to my wife about adoption and being open to the idea to adoption because of you guys, because
Oh
of
gosh.
Samuel, because he would tell her. He always drug his feet about the adoption thing. He's like, how do you know you could really love someone else's baby? And then he gives credit to Samuel, like, my son. He's like, because he was there since he was born. And he's like, I love this little boy like he's mine. So that opened up their hearts for him anyway, to consider adoption. So then after I move out and I'm married, they start the adoption agency, with an adoption agency, which is just remarkable, because then
That's so incredible.
they
Oh
have
my
their kids.
gosh.
And then I homeschool my kids, I homeschool her kids.
That's the biggest full circle moment I have ever heard in my entire life.
Just like,
So
thank
is
you, Jesus.
that who you call your niece? You call them your niece and nephew?
My nieces, yeah. I call them my nieces
Nieces?
because they adopted two girls.
Okay, two girls.
Yeah, super cool.
That's
Just
incredible.
super cool. Yeah.
I love it. I love
Oh,
it. So
God
there's
is good.
God's redemption full circle once again.
Amen. Totally
Awesome.
cool. But so if you want me to pivot for you again,
Yes, let's pivot. Pivot, pivot.
um, so remember the part where I told you that my mom always said I don't remember my dad,
Mm-hmm.
or the man she was with to have me. So that's something I've always, tried to figure out. I'm like, well, how can I find out? Is there a way that I could do it myself? Being resourceful
Mm-hmm.
again. In my 20s or so, I had to have been like 19 or 20. I remember talking to someone like, well, what would you do? Like, if you were looking for, I'm like, it was a small base. It's in Iceland. There's not going to be that many people. I'm like, what if I just get a list of who is there? Like, and I show the list to my mom. Mom, which one is the one that you were with? and and then they told me, they're like, yeah, there's this thing like Freedom of Information Act you can do. And he's like, try this, write a letter here. And I remember writing a few letters to some different stations, and I got this annoying, somewhat comical letter back because I was like 19, 20, maybe 21. And I got this letter back. One of them responded, and it says, we're sorry, we cannot obtain such historical information.
Hmm.
And I was
Typical.
like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You all know what year, what time so and so signed what on what ship in what island. Like, baloney. But then I just thought it was funny and annoying because I'm like 20. I'm 20. Like, it's 20 years old. It's not historical. I am not historical.
Right, right.
So at that point I kind of let it lie. And and then later, years later, you hear about those DNA tests and stuff.
Hmm.
And I've always wanted to do one just to know, like, well, what's my ethnicity? Because my mom knew he was Filipino, but she thought maybe he's some other nationality too. She couldn't tell if he was like, Asian, was he Chinese or something. So I get a DNA test.
Like the 23andMe?
Yeah, but I did
Okay.
ancestry.com. And I get it back, and it's so like um, specific. It says what your maternal genes are and your paternal genes are, like
Oh,
like how your heritage is maternal or paternal. And I was like, well, that's really cool. And I mean, this is probably like 2017 when I did this test. It was a long time ago. And so I get the results. And so my dad was Filipino and white.
Mm.
And I remember telling my mom, and she's like, oh, okay, whatever. And then in May of 2023, they had a new feature where it was like connecting people. Like, hey, you might have these cousins, you might have these distant relatives because so many microns or whatever it's called match in your DNA. So I reached out to two of them that were a little interesting because it said might be first cousins paternal, because like this is how specific it is. I was like, oh, well, that might get me to some close information because it's paternal. So
And
I
were they
reached out.
in the area?
I had no idea
Oh, okay.
because how the app works, it's just like these users, and the users don't even have they don't even have their name. It's just like
User 6671214.
JP or whatever it was. So, but I'm like, well, what's it gonna hurt? It's through the app. I'm not giving my phone number or my email or anything. So I reach out and I send some messages. One never answered, one answered, and just kind of gave a vague, like, I'm not sure anything, I don't know, and didn't really answer. So it was May 2023. So in December, I get a message from someone in Facebook,
Hmm.
a name I've never seen before. And this woman, she's like, hey, you reached out to my daughters in Ancestry, and I want to know what you know and get some information from you and talk a little bit. And I was like, okay, well, what's your daughter's name? And she says their names, and I look, and I'm like, sorry, I don't know if maybe I messaged the wrong person. Sorry, because the names didn't match the username. So she's like, no, those are my daughters. And she's like, what are you looking for? So and I remember there's been other situations where I've told people, like, did you know, how would you find out? Like, this was my mom, this was the year. And all I know is my dad did this for work. So I tell this lady all this stuff. I don't know why I trusted it. I don't know why I just answered this Facebook message, but I did because it's safe. Like, this is my mom's name, and this is where she was stationed, and this is the year, and this is the information that I have. Like, what do you know? Just hoping I'd find something out. And then, and she basically confirmed that she said, well, I know my brother was in the Navy, and he was in Iceland, but he's passed away. And then I said, well, what year was he born? Because then that was like the next thing I can think of, because I've never gotten this close to someone having any information that was anything similar to mine. And then when I asked what year he was born, my thinking was like, I'm just looking like, what's the age difference? Because hopefully he's older than my mom. And then I said, well, what's his name? And then she basically abruptly stops talking. And she's like, for the privacy of my brothers, and they're not here, I can't share that kind of information. And then I kind of got upset and a little bit hurt, because I was like, you reached out to me, and
Why would you stop responding?
I just gave you all this information. And then, so it was just a little odd. So she sends a message, sorry, can we meet in person? And I was just thinking, I was almost embarrassed of myself. Like, why did I think I could get such special information over Facebook Messenger? Like, what was I thinking? What was I expecting? And it was so emotional. Like, when I was talking to this lady, and then she says, I have a brother. Yes, he was in Iceland, and blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, oh, what? No? It's just such weird feeling. So then she sent a message, and I didn't answer. And then I saw my mom in December, and I told her a little bit about the conversation, and she had an interesting response to what I had told her, that I have cousins and might have some information, but it kind of got stopped cold. And my mom just had this response. She's like, I didn't know what I was going to do with you. Like, just suddenly recalls and was aware of what it was like
Mm.
to find out she's pregnant with me. Like, it was just, I didn't know. I didn't want to marry him. I didn't want to be with him because I didn't know what I was going to do with you. Because that was her thought. That's her way of thinking. As soon as you're pregnant, you got to get married.
Right, right. Well, in that day, that was a common thing, right?
Yeah. So anyway, so that lady, I finally responded like a month later after her sending another message and told her that, sorry, I respect you want to protect your brother's information and privacy. And I get it. Totally understand. I'm still a little hurt and confused and embarrassed, I guess, why I thought I'd find out something so big and so important that I've wondered all my life. And I've prayed for that man that he would know the Lord, because that would be the only way I would get to ever see him if
Mm.
he's not alive. And so I said, thank you for your time, blah, blah, blah. So then later I get a message from someone else. And she's like, this is, Jenny Mae, you messaged me through the the ancestry, and I have some information for you. I'm coming to you as myself. I hope you would like to talk because I have some information for you. Here's my phone number.
Oh,
I couldn't answer it right away because I was like, what? So I finally answer her and I text her and we set up a time to talk. And we get to talk. There was a point where I kind of resigned that I'd ever get to know. And she told me his name. And yes, he passed away. I actually, when I was messaging them, with the ancestry, that was actually like the anniversary of his death.
oh, come on. For real?
And so my cousin, she tells me that that was probably why it was hard for their mom, because
Mm.
like, what? Who is this girl? Who is this person? And, I mean, it was 2 years past his death, but it was around the anniversary of his death. And she said, that's hard because we all focus on anniversaries of death and remember them and their birthdays and all that. And, so I get to, she's kind of given me this brief update or this brief history of the family. And, basically what I've learned is my dad is from the Philippines. He was born in the Philippines. He's the oldest of three children, and that woman who was messaging me is his younger sister. And they were fathered by an American man
Mm.
who married their mom in the Philippines, and so they're all half white, half Filipino. And but as the story goes, he also had a family in America at the same time, a wife and children, and in pursuit of the law of their dad. Like, you're gonna go to jail if you don't come home and fix it. So he abandons them in the Philippines. And
Hold on. Let me understand this. So he had two families?
what would be my grandpa, my dad's dad.
Okay. Okay. So he had two families,
Yeah.
one in the Philippines and one in the States.
Hmm.
So like two wives?
Hmm.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so that's just hard, I think, on, my dad and his brother and my Aunt Joyce, because they're like, our dad abandoned us, and they love their mom. Like, she's a treasure, and it's so beautiful what I've learned so far. And then I got to talk to my aunt's husband, who actually is a lifelong friend of my dad. And it was so sweet to hear from him, because the way he would talk about my dad, and um, it was just really sweet. And he said that he said, it was normal for people to join the Navy, for the men in the Philippines to join the Navy. And they knew that they wouldn't take you if you said you had a wife and children.
Mm.
So he went into the Navy not saying I have a wife and children because um, that's just what you don't do it. So my that's how I found out that I have I have five older siblings.
Five older
I have
siblings.
I have five older siblings.
Satinka, are you able to contact any of them?
Well, the fun part is two of the sisters are coming over tomorrow.
What? Oh my gosh.
Because two of them live in California.
The timing of this podcast, we're going to have to do round three to find out how it goes.
Just so amazing. Like
That is good.
because the wild part is the way they all are. Like I'm a complete stranger. They don't know who I am. When I first talked to my cousin, she says at the end of the conversation, she's like, I hope it's okay, but I want to tell you, I love you.
Oh,
And I like fell apart. I was like, it was just, I don't know how you could, but that's how they are. And they're all Filipino. They're super loving. And it's just incredible. I'm like, you don't know me. Like, how do you just love me? And then so I've talked to her sister, so my other cousin, and yeah. I'm sorry, I have to blow my nose. Like
I think
it's
everybody will understand.
and
So,
she's just as sweet, and then I have another brother who's younger than me, and I met him, and he's just a sweetheart too. And I remember talking to him for a little bit, and we both got emotional, and he's like, I wish I could hug you. And I was just like,
so five older siblings and then a younger brother.
yes,
So am I doing my math right? There's seven of you
by my dad.
by your
Yeah,
dad.
yeah.
Incredible. And they're all in the United States?
They all have US citizenship. My dad made sure of that for them, which was super cool. And my there's only one of the brothers who is in the Philippines taking care of their mother.
Okay.
Yeah. And just
Wow. That is a full circle moment. So did you ever find out, was your dad a believer? Do you know?
my sister tells the story because I got to talk to her. Like seriously, it's been less than 2 weeks. I just met her and she's already like, when can I come over? It's the cutest thing. Anyway, so I asked her because she's a believer, and I said, I want to know, like, was our dad a believer? And so she tells me a story. He was super sick, and one of the sisters was with him, and she was able to get him to like, Dad, Daddy, Jesus, like, do you believe in Jesus for your sins and forgiveness? And so how I understand it is she said yes, but he waited until he was, on his deathbed.
Hmm.
But that's how good the Lord is, like it's okay.
We had the thief on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
Like God can redeem us at any moment, at any time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes him so good.
Mm-hmm.
He's such a good, compassionate, loving father. And you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna you're gonna be able to see your dad in heaven someday. And it's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be cool.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Yeah, and then just the thought of, I was, yeah, worldview. Look at this little girl. Look at the life she had. You think, God, she's really missing out. She doesn't have a lot, but I look and I see how much the Lord has provided. Like
Yeah.
so many times where, even the fact that I was provided a place to be with Samuel after
Mm-hmm.
having, like, and then, you know, spending that time with them and growing with them as a family. And then, like, he was the one I asked to walk me down the aisle. I didn't ask my stepdad. I asked Kurt, will you walk me down the aisle?
Oh my
Because
gosh.
that was what God provided.
Oh
Like,
my
because
goodness.
he loved me like a daughter. And he, you know, like, it's just so many things I could say. God was there. God was there. God was there.
And then
Like,
Andrew
yes.
and the
I
rest
love,
of the kids.
you know,
Yeah.
my husband. And then I guess the last thing I'll share with you is it's some of the things that they have described my dad, the way that they describe him sounds so much like Andrew, like my
Mm,
husband. And that was so sweet to hear because I thought, you know, the saying is you'll marry your dad, right? I never knew him, had no influence, but that's how ingrained it is.
mm,
You know, like this is, you know, like this is what your husband's gonna be like. It's like the Lord knew. And then even just like how I am as a person, I know that is not doesn't always match the way my family is, you know? And then meeting this side of my family, I'm like, it's fun. I say it, it's like I'm already getting a dose of my own medicine because the way that they are, they're like, okay, when can we get together and make it a date? Like we're gonna do a thing. Like it's and just how open they are to love. And it's like I know that I'm that way. So it's kind of weird. I feel like I've been like, wait, I have to process, wait, I have to process, wait. And they're like, no, we're ready to love you. You're our family, dang it. Like, we love you. It's just,
it's just so beautiful.
I just am usually beside myself for the last 2 months when I start thinking about it. And so his name was Lawrence, but he doesn't go by Lawrence. Nobody knows him by that name. They all call him Sonny.
Oh,
It was Sonny. And then their younger brother, his name they was William, but they don't call him William. They call him Happy.
sunny and happy.
And then there's Joyce, the joy. And then my friend, when she heard me tell that about my dad being Sunny and there's Happy and Joyce, and she's like, "That's you."
Oh my gosh, it totally is.
And I was just like,
Sunny,
"Oh,"
happy, and joy.
it's like, "Oh," it's like God,
100%.
like thank you, Jesus, you're so good,
He is good.
super good.
Well, I think that is the perfect place to end. Sunny, happy, enjoy. Satinka, thank you. Thank you for being sunny, happy, and joy to me. Always, my little California sunshine. And thank you for your willingness to share. And I can guarantee you that when this comes out, there's going to be an army of listeners that are praying for you and for your relationship with your siblings and your cousins and your aunts. And um, I think we'll be celebrating with you that you got to have this moment. So,
Yeah, the other thing I've always wished for is I've always wanted to know his name. I just want to know his name and see a picture.
mm,
I haven't seen a picture yet because I told them all. I said I want to wait to see him with my Aunt Joyce in person because I feel like that's the closest as I'm gonna get to seeing my dad is through my aunt. So they've all been super respectful of that. Like, wait, don't send any pictures. I'm gonna see him with her, and I'm really looking forward to that. I have a date set for that. I'm gonna fly to Sacramento to meet her because a lot of them live in the East Coast, and I'm gonna meet her when she's in California in Sacramento in early April is when I go to meet Joyce and see my dad.
I can't
And
wait. I can't wait to hear about it.
thank you.
Satinka, thank you.
You're welcome.
What a great episode, huh, guys? I just, I can't get over Satinka. She's just something. She is so amazing. So I was given permission at the end of this episode to share a little bit of an update. And so the day after we recorded, as Satinka said in the episode, she had the opportunity to meet two of her sisters. And so she gave me permission to share the photo. And so here is Satinka and two of her beautiful siblings. And I get geek out on the details. I just see how they're just holding each other and they're just beaming and they're just, the joy. So, what a beautiful story. Thank you, Satinka, for sharing it with us. Thank you for such a happy ending. And we can't wait to hear how the rest of it goes. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Bye.